Hey everybody, today's words to live by are: there is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow men or women. True nobility lies in being superior to your former self. That is Ernest Hemingway. And comparison steals your joy, and Hemingway knew it well before we did. And it doesn't just make for great literature, it's actually practical because comparison traps us in someone else's story. That's the biggest sort of aha I can give you on that. So when you compare your job, wealth, relationships, health, well-being, physical attractiveness, when you compare any of that to somebody else, you're trapped in someone else's story. You're not focused on your own story. And that's no bueno in my book because your story is your story. So I think that's why focusing on being better than you were yesterday isn't only good to do, but it actually works. And I'll give you a couple of examples just from my own life and how I've sort of used this quote to snap me back into a focused mode on myself and my story and not getting caught in somebody else's story. So I'll give you a sports example. I played tennis, obviously, for quite competitively for about 14 years, and they have these things called rankings. And so it's player by player. And so it's really hard to sort of look at somebody else's name and be like, I have to be better than that person so that I go higher in the rankings, right? So it's a very natural thing to do, especially when you're young. And I can tell you that I reached a point where I stopped looking at it and I stopped comparing myself to other people. And magically, that was the time when I jumped the highest up the rankings. It was when I wasn't even comparing myself to anybody else. I was just worried about, not worried, but I was just working on parts of my own game that I felt like could be better. Like, felt like I could do better in certain parts, like my serve, my backhand. And so those two things actually became strengths of mine. And it evolved because I wasn't thinking about trying to outdo or having a better serve or better backhand than XYZ person that was ahead of me. So it really came back to when I focused in on my own story as an athlete. And so I think, for sports, it's pretty easy, but I think sometimes too, you get caught up in comparing, well, is my car nicer than my neighbor's, or is my house bigger than the neighbor's? And so you get sort of this comparison, and what you're really doing is you're wrapped up in your neighbor's story about their car and their house, and it stops being your own house or car or thing, anything material. Obviously, it's easy to compare, and so my advice is don't get trapped in that. I think there's real merit and nobility in just looking at your own circumstances and saying, how can my own circumstances be better for what I'm capable of? And so the better way to look at it is, do I have a nicer car today than I did yesterday? Do I have a better house today, and am I more comfortable in my home today than I was yesterday? And so if you do that, I think it's good. The last part is in business. When I started my own marketing agency, it's really easy. It would have been really easy for me to look at the hundreds of other marketing agencies that were out there operating and try to compare myself to them. But the second that I sort of stopped doing that, it's actually when I became more innovative, unknowingly compared to everybody else. So I think the takeaway is this: it's called self mastery for a reason. It has nothing to do with mastering anybody else. So I hope you enjoyed this reflection, folks. And if you did, please like and or subscribe. And I'll see you all again soon.